Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Playsy Warm Up, the podcast where we dive into the stories, people, and places driving the sporting event and tourism industry forward. I'm your host, Carrie Shields. Today's conversation is one I've really been looking forward to. I'm joined by Caitlin Schmelz, VP of Lacrosse, and Andrew Dahir, VP of Soccer at Elite Tournaments, two leaders who are operating at scale in the youth sports world and navigating all the complexity that comes with it. In this episode, we get into what it really takes to run high quality youth tournaments across multiple weekends, sports, and destinations, and what separates a good event experience from a great one. Keelan and Andrew share how they think about growth, organization, and experience as youth sports continues to evolve, and what they genuinely look for when deciding where to host events. We talk candidly about what tournament directors actually care about, common misconceptions destinations and facilities have, and the real trade offs between time, money, and stress that organizers face every day. From facilities that end up on the never again list to destination partnerships that truly work, this is an honest, practical conversation with a lot of takeaways. And we do wrap on a positive note, talking about the events they're most excited about this year and some of their favorite events they've run along the way. I truly appreciated the time that Andrew and Caitlin took to have this conversation. Elite Tournaments is an organization that I've looked up to and really have looked to as thought leaders within this space. They were so generous with just sharing their knowledge, their experience, and really what they look for out of these partnerships. So I thought it was a conversation that anyone could get a lot out of. So I hope you enjoy. Let's jump in. Today's episode is sponsored by the Playsy Innovator Summit, taking place June 15th through 17th, 2026 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the Vanguard Ann Arbor. The Innovator Summit is Playsy's annual gathering of destination leaders, event organizers, facilities, and industry partners. 3 days of hands-on innovation, real conversations, and practical ideas you can actually bring back to your community. It's designed for meaningful connection, collaboration, and forward-thinking discussions around the future of destination experiences and sports tourism. And it's not all we're. Attendees will also take part in curated experiences in one of the country's most iconic sports towns, including a visit to the Big House. If you're thinking about innovation, technology, and what's next for hosting and destination experiences, we'd love to see you in Ann Arbor this June. Kate and Andrew, welcome to the Plays Warm Up podcast.
Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here. Appreciate you.
Of course, I'm excited for this conversation today. But for those who may not know you both, could you give a little bit of your background and introduce Elite Tournaments to us?
Yes, perfect. So Elite Tournaments is an event management company. We own and operate a lot of our own events. Our company is kind of based outside of Maryland in West Friendship, Maryland, right outside of Baltimore. But for the most part, the majority of our business is managing events for different clients across both the soccer and lacrosse space. So for those of you who know him, Mike Libber started our company about 25 years ago. He started it with one soccer tournament because he felt a need for the space, and our company's grown to about 65 events across both the soccer and lacrosse space with only about 22 employees. So we are busy over here. But we manage some of the top tier soccer and lacrosse clients in the space and run events all across the country.
Awesome. And could you guys give a little bit about your background and how you both individually got involved with Elite Tournaments and in the lacrosse and soccer space?
Yes, mine was kind of very much luck of the draw, if I'm being honest. I always knew I wanted to be in the sports world a little bit and interned in college in sports marketing and then worked in the CVB space at Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge. And then met one of our good friends, Ellie Marks, at a conference, Sports ETA, and became very fast friends with her. And then it just so happened a few years later, Elite was looking to expand their business, and there was an opening. I had gotten out of the sports space for a very short period of time and was just itching to get back into it. And timing worked out and new clients came on board. And here I am 5 years later, still at Elite and still learning every single day about this crazy youth sports space.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and similar to Caitlin, I think, very very similar stories actually of how we both got brought into it. So, like Caitlin, didn't necessarily play or look to get into soccer specifically, like out of school or for a future job. Worked in the sports world and always knew I wanted to be in the sports world, but never, as a kid and as an athlete, you don't necessarily know what that means coming out of high school and going even out of college maybe for some of us, but. Yeah, I was in the event space and got connected with elite tournaments through my previous job, and then ultimately, again, similar to Caitlin, they had a couple new clients that were brought on board, and they were looking for someone to help run those events and kind of take those on without maybe affecting the entire company's business, if you will, at that time, because we are a small business. So that led me to getting back into the outdoor event space, which is kind of what I grew up in, being playing all different sports. So happy to kind of be back in that space. And again, just a little bit prior to Caitlin starting is when I
Yep.
started. We have a very similar timeline as well. So it really has been kind of a blow up for Elite over the last 5 or 6 years as a
Yeah, they
company.
always
That's
think
great.
that, Andrew and I are really top tier me lacrosse, him soccer players, and that's how we fell into the space, and it actually has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
We both
I
came
love that.
from operational mindsets, and it just really worked out that we work in the sports that we do, but we also very much I sector into soccer, Andrew sectors into lacrosse. A lot of the events are very similar in a way and very different in other ways too, but a lot of times it's just different rules on the rectangular field that sets the
Yeah,
sports apart. The events run very similar.
yeah. Yeah, isn't it fun? I can so relate to wanting to be in sports in some way, but having no idea what that even looked like
Mhm,
or what jobs there were outside of things like coaching or ticket sales or marketing for teams. And this job has been so eye-opening to the
mhm.
different opportunities within the sports landscape. And so totally relate on that. And especially as we get into youth sports and just the growth of youth sports and how much more complex these events are becoming. And so, how are you guys thinking about keeping your events organized and scalable and just overall creating a great event experience?
Yes, it's getting harder and harder, that's for sure. So, we kind of try to set ourselves apart from our competitors, by always focusing truly on the athlete experience overall. So, obviously, good field quality is important, competition's important, scheduling's important, but focusing a little bit more on what are these athletes doing off the field. So in our events on the lacrosse side specifically, we create a major, massive vendor village that has everything from, our official merchandise partners, but also activations, 360-degree photo booths. We cater towards high school female athletes and what are they all loving right now? And that is anything to do with social media.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
we've had to cater a lot of what we do to making these crazy balloon arches and letters for athletes to take pictures with and, put tag us so we can repost it on our Instagram. Everybody always wants to be on the official Instagram for the event. Um, and then, our partners and sponsors also really help with that. So we've worked really hard over the past few years to bring in new partners like Nike and new official merchandise partners like the Sports Promotions Group to create these experiences that are above and beyond walking up to a tent, buying a t-shirt and leaving. They're
Yeah.
walking into a massive store that's branded with Nike and music's blaring and they have options galore, and then walking to the next vendor and being able to buy a new stick and then going and getting their picture and tagging it. So really focusing on that as well as, choosing destinations that people want to go to as well. So when they leave the fields, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do different things, and in our different regions that does mean different activities, and it works really well with the partners that we choose that we can kind of pitch that to our attendees so that from the time they're arriving at the airport to flying out, they're having a good experience.
Yeah. And I think just to add on to that a little bit is we've really been challenged by a lot of our clients in a good way, right? To think about the 95% of the time that they're spending at the destination not being on the field or not playing their games. Lacrosse in the vendor village works because they're spending a few hours in between their two games each day, and they have that time to be on site. Whereas from a soccer perspective, we get challenged to work with the destinations to come up with the things to do in those areas because they only play one game per day. So they're maybe on site at the facility for 3-4 hours or less than that, depending on their family and others that may be there. But so that's been a positive challenge, because at the beginning it was, how do we just get games on the field to happen? What do we need to make the games be played? And that is, at the end of the day, that's the bread and butter, right? And that's the base of our jobs is making those games happen. But ultimately, what makes the team want to come back, or additional teams that see the social media or the marketing and, hey, we should have been there, is what we have to focus on to be able to expand and make those events grow year over year.
Yeah, it's really that FOMO. I mean, it's crazy how much since my playing days, social media wasn't around or just starting to come around as much. And now going to any new venue builds, or I was able to stop by one of your events in the fall and just seeing just that viral aspect of how can we create that video content? How do we create, involve athletes and getting them spotlighted? Just things
Yeah.
that were not the case, even 10 years ago, and now just as vocal point of all of these youth tournaments. And
Yeah.
so you guys are managing so many events at one time, and you mentioned just how important the partnership with the destination is. What kind of support do you look for in a destination or a host city?
Yeah, I think primarily it's the collaboration, right? It is kind of the main priority for us is being able to have that relationship with not only the destination but also the facility, and to see that even when we're not there and not on site, is to looking at a destination who knows and has that relationship with their facility, that is able to help pivot if there's issues that arise on site, whether that's in the buildup or during the event, right? There's always changes. We understand that construction happens, facilities need to improve, cities need to improve, but events don't stop just because that's the case. So really communication between all three parties is the number one for us. And you can tell very quickly when cities and destinations don't collaborate with those facilities. So I think that's another piece that just kind of stands out, and makes it a lot harder for us as event owners to be able to make the final decision on things, or to push deadlines and what we really want to do, because we're also most likely a third party and working on behalf of a client. So managing 4 or 5 different parties and groups trying to come up with the main goal and what that final decision is key. And having that relationship between the facility and the destination is imperative for all of that to come to fruition. And then as we build up that planning and we get to being on site, I think, having that availability to call or to just be available to answer a question at any point in time is what we look for. And again, it's one of those where when you're on site at a facility during events, you can tell those destinations that stand out and are there for you. And those are the people I think that most event owners would want to go back to at the end of the day and return to, as opposed to someone who's like, well, you have the facility and here you go, here's the keys and good luck kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Cait, I don't know if you have anything to add to that specifically, but I think that
Yeah.
was overall.
I think a hard part for us is for Andrew and I when we're managing these events. Obviously, we have a wonderful team behind us, but the destinations and the facilities that we're utilizing, they are the boots on the ground for us. I'm in Baltimore, Andrew's in Kansas City, and we have events everywhere from, Massachusetts to California. And though we do site visits, though we have people check in on the different venues, we need to always know what's going on, because when we're arriving the Monday before an event for setup, when 10,000 things have changed since our site visit, it's a little bit stressful, because then at that point we only have 3 or 4 days to make changes accordingly. So those destinations that are, fully transparent with us, they're like, hey, just so you know, field 7 looking a little rough. You might want to
Yeah.
alter your schedule right now and move as many games if you can off of field 7 because field 13 looks wonderful. Little stuff like that. As Andrew and I are both tournament directors for certain clients, those help massively. That we're able to just make those changes way ahead of time instead of week of when we're having to manage the setup of our events. I think a lot of people think we come on site and the event just happens. We come on site and we are also the people setting up tents, tables, chairs, fence banners, wing banners, vendor village, headquarters, hospitalities, all of the above. And the less we have to deal with week of, and the more we're able to plan with these destinations and complexes, the better we are leading up into the event.
Totally. And really, they're an extension of your team. And I
Yeah.
think it was interesting to be able, Andrew, when I was able to stop by your event, I'll give a shout out to Utah Valley and just their relationship with the new
Mhm.
Epic Sports Park. It was one of the worst weather weekends that Utah Valley. I was at the Utah football game and it was just the most insane rain and thunderstorm. So I had anxiety for you, for you, and for Abby just while I was on the site visit. But I think could you talk about just how important, like as you say, things come up. You're running an outdoor event, and anything could happen. And so, just speak to the importance of being able to have that communication and having them be an extension of your team for an event like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, first, sorry you had to be there during that weather. Enjoy it either. We also tried to go to a football game
Yeah,
and it was raining the entire time. So
yeah,
I still enjoyed it, still had a great experience. I
yeah.
love Provo and the Utah Valley area there. So shout out to Abby and her team. I think that's an easy example to bring up because of how much they do and how much they go above and beyond for your events. And similar to you, kind of seeing the Epic Sports Park from the beginning. We've also been there from the beginning, so that's been a fun just project and facility to see from pre event stages to now being the first ones to run event there, and now a year later we're still running events there. I think that just again shows how the relationship building has developed into multiple events being ran at their facility and continuing to come back year over year. But in an instance like that or situations like that where there is weather, I know I mentioned it in the last response, but like we don't expect you to be on site, right, with us out there moving tents or in the rain or in the weather. But credit to Abby and her team, they are out there doing that. So
Yep.
that right there, tells me that they're in it for the right reasons. They're in it to support us, not just to get business and book their facility up for the year. And that goes further, I think, than professionalism, to be honest.
Yeah.
That makes it personal to us, to be able to call them and say, hey, can we get 5 guys to come help us set up tents earlier because everything blew over last night or whatever the case may be. Having that support and those people, again, it may not seem like anything to the teams attending, which is the goal, right? At the end of the day, we want it to look like nothing ever happened. There was never any issues, even though it thunderstormed and 50-mile-an-hour winds blew through, or maybe there was a tornado on site the night before. It looks clean and it looks like we started the day with nothing happening, previously. So I think for those facilities, and again, we don't expect them to be there, but to be able to be helpful in those situations and at any point in time is a huge ownership on them as well, because we know they have families. We know they're spending the same amount of hours separately on different events at the same time, maybe even, in their city that are going on. So, to be able to handle that, I think we're all familiar with that situation and being in that position. So it's super helpful when we do get that support from them.
I
And
think
I
if
can
you
attest
guys,
because
oh, sorry,
oh,
Carrie.
I was just gonna say I was in a golf cart at that event and going
Mhm.
around helping pick up some of those
Yeah.
posters. So I can. They are quite literally boots on the ground. But sorry,
Yeah.
Cait.
Yes. Oh, no, no, no. I think if you want a whole podcast about weather, Andrew and I can tell you the horror stories, mainly Andrew can. And unfortunately that just tends to be the uncontrollables, but it's always nice when those destinations come through and truly go above and beyond for us. And we always say almost sometimes 75% of our job on site is solving problems and
Yep.
quickly finding solutions to problems and uncontrollables so that the teams that are attending have no idea. So when we work with destinations that are that second call away, that's like, hey, help.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need as much help as we can. If you can, no pressure, but we are trying to make this happen and have teams come back at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Those are the destinations that stand out to us, but really stand out to our clients as well.
Yeah.
Even though we sometimes are that middleman, we make sure to let our clients know when the destinations are truly going above and beyond and help us in those areas of crisis, because we want them to know as well that it's not just us. It is, as you said, the boots on the ground, and it is the whole team that's coming through in order to make that event happen, whether it's that day or the next day.
I love it. And we will definitely have an episode 2 on all things out of our control for running events because I'd love to hear more horror stories. But
Right.
No, you don't.
when it when it comes to, I mean, you guys have grown so much over the course of the last few years, and we talked about collaboration and partnership, but what influences your decision for a potential host that maybe a destination might not know or realize is important to you?
Yeah, I think some things are really simple, if we're being honest. Some things are, quite frankly, how many fields do you have at one location? How is your field quality? Is there space for vendor village? What is your relationship with the outside community to help us bring in the sometimes 50 workers that we need to hire that are local throughout the event? So some of those things are very simple, which might sound
Yeah.
crazy, for our events, we are oftentimes competing for dates that a lot of our competitors want as well. So one of the things sometimes we've gotten to just be super simple of, hey, what open dates do you have at X complex? Because I think some that helps us narrow down, okay, we can host this event, or this event there. And that's where Andrew and I really collaborate between the soccer and lacrosse space. So truly a lot of times availability comes into play. And then obviously from there, it's just how they're able to assist us in making sure the event can happen from the start.
Yeah. And I think, you know, adding into that a little bit, she talks about the things that are simple, right? As far as from our standpoint, and usually the facility, and I guess it goes back to you knowing kind of the destination and the facility and how they operate. Is the responses you get to some of those questions, you know, right off the bat of those
Yeah.
things that we would consider simple, you know, not necessarily simple to some of those people that maybe don't host large national events all the time. Which again, easy to kind of refer back to like an Epic Sports Park who's just starting out. Whereas things we might, you know, not even think about or consider, they're thinking about because it is the first event they're running on site. But a lot of the times, what makes it hard for us is that we are the middleman, right? We are the face for our clients, not necessarily for just elite tournaments at the end of the day. So while it may be a simple between us and the facility, our client could have a completely different opinion or reason or expectation that they're looking to hit. Then it's our responsibility to work with the destination, you know, to make that happen or to come to some sort of middle ground to collaborate on those. But I think a lot of the times, you know, our biggest challenge is portraying to a facility or to a destination what our clients are thinking, why they're thinking it, the future of the league maybe at that point in the bigger picture, and how that plays into the, you know, the choices we make or the things we want to do on site. And that's not always easy for us to do, but that's ultimately what our job is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something, I mean, every relationship is built on trust. And
Yeah.
so, what is a piece of advice that you would give to a destination or host city to build trust with you early?
I always say, tell us your red flags off the bat. Just because you tell us that this is happening the week prior to and the fields might not be in the best condition, that doesn't mean we won't consider you, but just be transparent with us up front on any of the details in the RFP that we're not expecting perfection. There's legitimately no destination, no complex in the country that's perfect, but being transparent on what you can and can't offer when we're booking the event, a year and a half, 2 years in advance is massive. And then two, even talking through some of the venues uncontrollables. One of the big things we've been dealing with over the past few years is venues going under construction and what they know, what they don't know. Are we able to have X number of fields? They might not know those answers just yet, but knowing that if, there is a problem, that they are open to helping us find a solution nearby or whatever it may be, from what those red flags could be.
To add into that, we always like to say, just send us all your open dates so we can
Yes.
look at the whole year as a calendar.
Yes.
Your whole year and what that looks like. So just let us know what, a little insight into
Yeah.
that, and we
Yeah.
can help maybe plan out your year for us to be able to fit in there.
That's
Yeah.
been our
No,
new
I,
favorite question for sure to ask
yeah.
complexes. If anybody out there who's listening to this that's gotten an email from Andrew and I over the past 6 months, what are your open dates throughout
Yeah.
all of 2027 and 2028? It helps us massively.
Yeah. I love that. And I think sometimes, I mean, we gave a great example in Each Valley and Epic Sports Park and just
Mm.
the relationship that they have. And do you guys have any advice for a destination that is looking to better their relationship with facilities within their city or a way that they can go about strengthening that relationship?
Yeah, I would say, speaking to that a little bit, I think what we see from the outside looking in is a lot of the times the communities that surround the facilities are, maybe not as in tuned with what's going on there, or aware that there's going to be 400 teams in their neighborhood, that weekend. So I think a lot of the times, and, I'll leave that to the local community government to figure out how they that
Yeah.
down to their neighborhoods. But I think a lot of the times it's almost just the unknowns in the area that make the community feel uneasy about it, or about us coming into their location and taking over, if you will. Obviously, bringing kids and teenagers into communities and into the hotels makes for always interesting scenarios and what goes on. Again, off the facility property and what they're doing outside of that, but to be fair, a lot of the times we get a lot of positives from communities when our events are in the area. About sometimes we'll go out to eat as staff afterwards, and they'll recognize we're in event gear, or they'll see a logo maybe that they've seen all week, and most of the time it's positive when we have those
Yeah.
interactions
Yeah.
there. But as far as a facility goes, I think really working with the local clubs in the area, especially from a soccer perspective. Whereas some of these facilities work with clubs that are within the leagues or within the events that we're hosting. So those people can help explain better or more in depth about again, our clients' reasonings and the league's bigger picture, and why they should be hosting that event, or maybe not hosting that event if that's a situation that comes up. But for the most part, I think it really just goes back to communication and working with people that understand what's going on in
Yeah.
that space.
Yeah, and I think going off of that as well, a lot of these complexes that different sports commissions might be pitching to clients like us, those sports complexes don't necessarily understand the greater impact that events like ours are bringing in. And so a lot of times the venue might look at X dollars in field rental, and that's where it stops. I think where there needs to be more education, and this is on the sports commissions to do with their partners, is we are bringing in tens of millions of dollars sometimes for airports and gas stations and restaurants, obviously hotels, just the broader community as a whole. One of the examples we always utilize is for one of our events, we work with probably about 40 police officers in the community. And we've ended up working with their Explorers program, and just really our event is impacting the sheriff's office overall because the amount of officers that we're able to employ over our event. So looking at it from a complex perspective, broadening their horizon to know this is a massive impact on our community, and it's not tens of dollars. Most of the time it's tens of millions of dollars in economic impact that, helps us come in year after year as well when everybody does support events like ours.
Yeah, it's funny. Our last episode, I had Anthony Holman, one of the heads of the NCAA championships, speak,
Mhm.
and that was almost his exact advice to how to build relationships with your hotels. It's
Yeah.
because it's not just a one-time event. This is a partnership that we are looking to have for all future events. And how can we help educate the community partners into this is the impact of investing into an event like this, bringing it into our city. So it's cool. The same things
Mhm.
stays true, which is just the importance of communication and advocating for that economic impact. So
Yeah. And I
now
think
to,
too, just one thing to add in there,
yeah,
I think as well, that's important that maybe the facilities and this might answer another questions like facilities don't actually, know potentially or are, still learning in this space is that, if both parties have a good year one, and have a good experience, a lot of the times, most of our clients and I think probably pretty much everyone that runs events would likes the consistency, right? So if it's you may have a challenging year one, but as long as it's successful on both ends of things, a lot of groups are willing to lock in long term and make those efforts to come back and continue to impact the destination and that community and work together. So that way there's familiarity, there's a good working start to these events down the line and building those relationships, and it makes it easier and easier year over year as opposed to going to new destinations
Mhm.
each event. So I think from our standpoint, the more you can work year over year with somebody, the better that event's going to be, not only for the client but for the facility and for the community in that area.
you must have listened to our episode with Anthony because he gave us the same advice. And because it will, when an event goes out for bid, it could just be for 1 year, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity for longer lasting partnership, which is
Mhm.
why you want to invest that time into that relationship. So no, I love to hear the consistency in answers. It's cool. So
Yeah.
if you had to pick one, what matters most to you?
Mm.
Saving money or reducing stress, and why?
Oh gosh. For our clients out there, it's always saving money.
Okay. Yes.
But to
And I
be
should say
honest,
saving time too. Saving
Yeah, yeah.
time, put that in
yes.
there.
Yes, just kind of depending on the scenario, I would say one of the things we always have to put as a priority is saving time. There are so many little things that happen while we are on site that take our full-time staff's attention. So little things like having really good workers that we can hire locally, that we know we can count on 15 staff members to come in, be almost a full-time staff member for us and work with us during that event, whether it's just field marshaling or whether it's helping us set up giant trusses and activations. That is saving our time and honestly our sanity, because we know we have those extra hands to be able to do anything and everything that it takes to make the tournament run well. We always say workers and staffing workers is crazy. That's again a whole nother topic because we have full-time members of our staff that work on truly staffing our events from local, colleges and working through the sports commissions, working through the CVBs. But a lot of times these workers just don't show up, or they don't know what they're getting into, even through our communications. So having reliable people that in turn does save our time and our stress, is very helpful.
I was going to ask next, what are a few things a destination can do to help lower that stress and save time
Yeah.
before, during, and after the event?
Yeah, I think from a planning perspective leading into it, I think a lot of it is kind of goes back to what we talked about of we have no idea about your city or your destination until we've ran an event there, right? So me being in Kansas City, her being in Baltimore, us running events all over, we rely on the destinations to provide those recommendations, whether it's suppliers or vendors or local businesses for us to utilize. You would be surprised at the amount of destinations where we go, hey, we need to rent a tent or a stage. Who should we utilize? And we either, oh, here's all the 10 companies that are in the area, or we don't know, we've never had to
Yeah.
do that before kind of thing. So, just having that list right off the bat makes planning for us easy. It makes going to those companies, I think, a easier process for us as well, because we can always lean back on the fact that we were provided your company based on the destination, which just gives you credibility at the end of the day,
Yeah.
hopefully, right? From the
Yeah,
destination,
yeah.
they're not setting us up for failure. But, usually 9 times out of 10, the companies are good to work with, and that impacts us from a planning perspective. And kind of tied into that again, helping with the local staff and just utilizing whether it's volunteer lists or that destinations already have that they use for their own volunteer opportunities, or again, connecting with the local clubs in the market that we may not already have contacts to be on site to help us run those events is massive. And I know Caitlin loves to call this one out,
Yeah.
but I'll call it out for her is
Uh-oh.
the hardest thing that we have that raises our stress in the opposite manner is when we have our destinations that want to come out on the first day of the event when it's just
Yes.
starting out. So it's always fun. We love seeing our destinations. Don't get us wrong there, but that first day and when the games kick off is a very stressful time for all of us, and it for whatever reason just seems to be the time that everybody wants to
Yeah.
visit.
Yeah.
Sounds
Come
That
midday the first day or midday the second day. Like I always tell destinations, no matter, yes, usually our mornings are rinse and repeat after the first day, but the first 2 hours of an event are always chaos. And
yeah.
so come after that, then we
Come
could,
after
because
you.
we want to spend time with the people coming and visiting
Yeah.
us. We want to be able to like dedicate our attention to that. And there's been so many people who have come up like 8 a.m. on a Friday when we start at 8 a.m. on a Friday, and you're like, I don't even have air horns out on this field yet. There's a referee missing on field one. We,
yeah.
Vendor Village is blowing over. Like,
Yeah.
yes,
And I think to be
It's
fair, it's more of like we also want, like she said, commit that time,
yes,
yeah.
because you guys are or the destinations are making that effort to come out
yeah,
and
Yeah.
see us. We want to be able to also appreciate that time and make sure we
Yeah.
have that dedicated time. So it's a little bit more of, on our side of things, just the
yeah.
timing perspective, right? Of wanting to also be able to spend
Mhm.
time with the destinations and not have to, be listening for a radio or handling another
Totally.
problem at the same time. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's we always joke about
yeah.
that. We have there's a few destinations and vendors and partners that we work with that just love to come on site that first day, which is always fun. It's always fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great advice. And that, Andrew, to what you said in preparation, it's funny. We're running our second conference this summer, our Plazy Innovator Summit, and just this morning I had two phone calls. One with a potential second night event space, and two with a potential photographer, and both of those were set up by Ann Arbor Sports Commission,
Mhm,
which is
mhm,
our partner host. And I'm not from Ann Arbor.
mhm,
I would have no idea where to start. And
mhm,
so just how much easier it makes just the time leading up to that I feel like I have an extension of our
mhm.
team who is trying to make the event a success and minimize the stress level of all that goes into hosting that event just makes our lives so much easier. And so I just wanted
Yeah,
to point that out because this morning I was like, I don't know what we do if we
Yeah,
we'd be on a lot
yeah,
of site visits.
yeah.
right. Yeah. It's a
Google
lot of research
searches,
time, right? I
yes.
mean,
Yes.
Google
it
only
goes.
goes so far in that
Yeah,
standpoint.
definitely. And so I want to talk about from great to never again when it comes to facilities.
Uh,
What are some quick ways a facility ends up on your never again list?
One thing that's not fair, but unfortunately has ended up on our never again list, and we're not going to name names, but multiple times if we have bad weather in a destination. I know that is outside of a facility's control, but that has turned us away from going back, not us, but our clients, because they've had to obviously problem solve and figure out how to make sure that they still have a good reputation, and going back year after year to the same place when there's been problems in the past never works. But we always say, give it a few years, people forget, and we'll probably be back even if there's bad weather. But unfortunately, that is one of them.
Yeah. I think kind of what goes with that as well is almost how it's handled by the facility in
Yeah.
those situations, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if there's an effort to work with us and be flexible, whether that's keeping a couple fields open to make sure games can still be played, or, maybe finding other facilities to even go play on to just make the event happen. Just the amount of effort I think that's put into that, clearly shows the effort and the relationship that the facility's wanting to build on their end of things.
Mm.
Especially if it's a first year event and there's a weather issue. Those places where you go back year over year or have multiple events, I think we've come to find it, they're more willing to have that conversation with us or have us involved with their maintenance staff or their facility staff. At the end of the day, everybody that's on site, 95% of those people are coming from out of the state or out of the area. So it's our job to fight on behalf of those people to the facility as to why we should maybe keep a field open. But as event organizers and people who do this for a living, we also understand there's probably an event next week that the fields need to be in shape for. So,
Yeah.
just a willingness to have that conversation, I think, makes it a quick make or break there during the process, and is easy for us to go to our clients then and say, hey, they weren't willing to do X, Y, and Z for us. There's no reason for us to go back there because they wouldn't be willing to do that for us in the future, where it may be a worse
Mhm.
situation and
Yeah.
worst case scenario. But in addition to that, I think kind of going along maybe the main ones would be like field quality, right? Again, it goes back to the conversation, right? Of, hey, if we have a concern about field quality, how is the facility going to respond to that? Is it oh, our fields are always good, like nobody ever says that? Or is it, yeah, we had, a sprinkler issue on field one,
Right.
and that's why it's brown this year. It'll be taken care of. Here's what we're doing to, fix it moving forward. And then kind of secondarily, which I don't know if these aren't necessarily deal breakers, but I would say more that get you put on maybe the never again list, or put on the maybe on the way to that list, would be working through parking and like traffic plans, and
Yeah.
not just coming to us and saying, well, there's way more cars than expected, we don't have room.
Mhm.
That doesn't work, right? And especially for big events, well, where do those people go?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I think we do a pretty good job on our end of thinking through all scenarios and
Yeah.
trying to come up with worst case scenarios with the venues. But again, just the willingness to work through those plans, I think, shows the commitment that the facilities are willing to make. And as long as you're willing to be flexible and work with us and come to a middle ground, then there's really no reason to not consider that facility moving
Yeah.
forward.
And I think, too, going off of what Andrew said, I've spent more hours of my life talking about parking than I ever expected to in a job. But at the same time, that is such an important priority for us, because that is our attendees' often first impression of the tournament. So if it's taking them an hour to get in, or the parking staff is mean, or there are no spots left, which is never an option, that has to be a priority for us. And then tying into venue staff is huge for us. And the people that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, both on site but pre-event, to be honest, there's complexes that we deal with that are never respond, and we can't get answers from. And it's frustrating for us because we have to count on them to do our job and to report to our client. So responsiveness is huge, but really that on-site staff from, whoever the complex manager is, to truly like our field liners and the maintenance staff that are doing everything in their power to also make the event happen. When there is a great staff that's all working together with us for obviously the final product, which is our event, it is a massive, massive like happiness for us that we want to continuously go back. Like, I can tell you multiple maintenance workers in my head that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're amazing. I wanna go back just because I know that they'll stay until midnight to reline a field if it rained." And those are stuff that's uncontrollable for us, but when we can count on those people, that's massive.
And to shift it to more positive, could you guys both give an example of a successful destination partnership? I know we give kudos to Avia and her team in Utah Valley, but maybe if you guys could both give an example of what a successful partnership looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think go. You want me
go
to
ahead.
go?
Yeah, go ahead.
One for us, and this does tie into Andrew, the kind of sports commissions that work together when we're going across multiple different regions.
Yeah.
One is Florida in general. So the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, the Bradenton Area Sports Commission, and the Sarasota Sports Commission. Those three entities work with us on multiple events that we run with our clients because they span Sarasota, Bradenton, and Tampa. And so when those sports commissions work together with us as well for that same common goal, it is so much easier because we can't do one without the other. So we can't run the event without Tampa and we can't run the event without Bradenton. So that's just a really good collaboration that we see because our fields span all of those entities and the hotels span all of those regions as well. So they have to work together for the end goal. And that's one we were just in Tampa in January, so that's top of mind. There's a lot of great partners, but that's one that's a top-notch crew for
Yeah.
sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, and they've made the effort as we continue to come back or want to come back and have grown exponentially over the last 5 years of involving hotel partners and bringing them to the forefront and making sure that we have a voice with those people as well in the area because of the success that it's brought and the economic impact that it's obviously brought to the destinations, but just the willingness for them to also put us in front of the right people to help continue to make those events successful. But another one that I mentioned that it kind of tied into everything that we just talked about as far as the never agains and like kind of the opposite of that for someone who's helped us through all that and in an area that has been the Greensboro CVB and Sports
Oh,
Commission. And in that
awesome.
area, I'm going to give him a specific shout out to Gary Gartner from NC Fusion
Awesome.
because
He's the best.
he as we talk about weather, him and I have been through the ringer a couple times. So but again, the fact of the matter is that the city and the sports commission work with the facilities and the
Yeah.
properties throughout their area, and we were able to shut down 16 of 20 fields and move off site to 3 different facilities that had
Okay.
turf to make 225 team event happen and not miss a game at
Mhm.
all throughout a
That's
5-day
incredible.
event because of rain. So
Yeah.
it's just, again, it shows that, where the understanding is at of the success of the event, continuing to build those relationships year over year, knowing that even if it maybe isn't that same event coming back, the fact that they put that effort in to help us be successful with this client, just puts them up, at top of mind whenever we're looking to source events and that region makes sense for our clients. So
Oh,
I think it all ties back to just that willingness to have the conversation, what the CBBs are willing to do to support us and all have a common goal at the end of the day.
I love it. And I think just in my 7, 8 years of doing this, elite tournaments has always been at the forefront of thought leadership on the event organizer side. And you guys are at every conference. You guys are always leading conversations. Why has that been important for you as an organization?
I think for us, as our business grows, we need to obviously continue to have our name out there, and we want to continue to have that reputation that we run the best soccer and lacrosse tournaments that there are. So we will do everything in our power with our clients to make sure that events run smoothly. And I think that is our job to our clients to continue to be at conferences, to continue to educate ourselves on new complexes coming to fruition, to continue to build relationships with sports commissions because that's impacting our events. It's impacting the grant money that we can bring in. It's impacting our relationships, which in turn is impacting our client's relationship and our relationship with our client as well. So
Totally.
the more that we can take to our clients of knowledge that we've gained in the industry, the more we are, striving to be successful together. And that's been helpful to us in our business model to continue to gain new clients. The majority of the clients that we get over time are because other clients referred us to that new client. And that's because of what we do to continue to try to just strive for success no matter what. Again, our staff is only 22 people and we manage 65 events. It is wild when I look at our staff, what we are able to accomplish year after year. And that is because of, number one, continuing to grow and wanting to stay atop the industry, but also because of the partners that we consistently surround ourselves with to be successful. Because it's not Andrew and I that do it alone. It's our full team that's able to be successful in every event that we run, whether it's a 30-team tournament or a 550-team tournament. And it's knowledge. It's always learning. I'm learning every single day, which is wild. It's good. That's why I love this job, but we have to learn and we have to sector and stay on top of not only our competition, but our client needs and the industry as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I can speak for myself and our team, but you have helped make our job easier and just have helped grow the industry in general. And I think it takes a real team effort to not only care about your organization, but for the industry as a whole. So I just wanted to thank you
Yeah.
for that. But as we finish up, I just wanted to ask, what is an event that you are really looking forward to in 2026?
Oh gosh. You want to go first, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, so it's easy for me because I always see kind of the season culminate with the championships every June. So
Okay.
for me, that's always my favorite time of year is kind of seeing the finals, seeing the playoffs, seeing the competition level raise. Even though there may be some bad games or there may be showcases as a part of that, but they're all different, right? So the championships, while they are the playoffs and the finals, there's so many different ways that and formats of those events, but ultimately seeing it all kind of culminate at the end of the year, even though it's the middle of the year, end of the year.
I feel
For
that.
all
I feel that. With the conference in June, I feel June will be the end of my
Yes.
year.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So yeah, similar. It's weird to like summer is the end of it, but that's always my favorite time is kind of June and July and the 4 or 5 championships that we run
Yeah.
for our league clients.
Awesome.
For the lacrosse side, our championship is always the IWLCA President's Cup. So it is the biggest women's lacrosse tournament in the country. We get about 750 college coaches, 550 teams. It's across the Sarasota, Bradenton, Tampa area. So we utilize 58 fields throughout that region. And it's a massive undertaking. Our team pretty much plans all year round for it. We are lucky that the tournament sells out in under 2 minutes. It's really cool to see our team come together, even on that weekend as a whole. Speaking of our company having multiple events on the same weekend, that is like our Olympics. We have an event in Florida across 3 venues, one in California, one in Arizona, and then events in Baltimore. And it is all hands on deck plus some to get all of those events underway and to be successful there. So that's always my favorite weekend because it's the most challenging, for sure. And coming out of it on that Monday, we all kind of call each other and are very relieved that we made it through, and can go enjoy Thanksgiving. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving. So that's always our happy time for sure.
That's awesome. That's your end of the year. So
That's our end of the year, yes.
And last question I always ask, what has been the biggest lesson you've learned on this journey?
Oh, goodness. Be flexible. I think that's a huge one. And then for me, as somebody who is a people pleaser at heart, I have learned that in the event space that you're never going to get 100% happiness from people. And with that, as again, a major people pleaser, if I'm at like 95%, I've learned that I've done my job. But also just to be flexible and know that for the most part, a problem that's happening on site no one else really knows about it except the internal team, or very few people know about it. So being able to really, think quick on your feet and run and solve that problem before it's a bigger issue. You learn a lot in those instances, but also we take every event and we figure out how to do better. That's just the nature of the business. We do post-event evaluations and meetings after events to say, hey, this happened. Why? Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think it's all learning. We're all learning all the time. It's crazy. But those are my biggest lessons. I was supposed to name one, named three, but that's
No,
okay.
I love
Let you go, Andrew.
No, I love it. No, I need to be reminded of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Andrew, how about
Yeah.
you?
Well, I have a meteorology degree now, so that's
He
great.
does.
Just kidding. I've learned a lot about weather over the last 5 years. That is something I never
Yeah.
anticipated, the depths of which I would be evaluating something like that at. But
Yeah.
in reality, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is how to manage people and personalities, and how to tailor expectations. And it kind of goes back to, every client is different. Every client has a different priority. Every event has a different priority to those clients. And what does that look like? And getting them to be able to maybe articulate that as well, to us from that standpoint, and how that transitions into success for them. And ultimately, our job is to make them successful at the end of the day, which in turn makes us successful as a company. But managing the people and the personalities is what I think over the last 5 years I've truly learned and worked with all ends of the spectrum,
Yeah.
which is only a positive for
Yeah.
future experiences and knowledge
Totally.
as well.
If you
Yeah,
ever want a lesson from Andrew on weather at 5 o'clock in the morning, come work our events, because he will give you a data point about the dew point and you're
yeah.
like, it is 5:15 a.m.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Hey, I
Appreciate it.
love that. I say my job is daily a geography lesson because I'm just
Yes.
Yeah,
learning about new cities that I never knew existed.
yeah,
But this has been such a fun conversation. We definitely have to do, I think, part 2 and 3 of this. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us. Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Until next time. Bye.